is the big day because we are going to do the CHR test. Our goal for today is 1. Execute the CHR test and find your CHR, the so-called critical heart rate we use in the 9-mile marathon training system to determine your MHR. 2. Find the max running speed you reached at the very end of the test. And the 3rd one, actually calculate your MHR from the date we found in number 1 and number 2. You know the test protocol now. We will increase our speed with 1 km per hour every 2 minutes, starting from 8 km per hour. If you have someone to accompany you, like on a bike, that will be very helpful to tell you when you have to speed up again after 2 minutes and to cycle at the exact speed. You can do the test very well all by yourself, as you will see in today's video. So for now, go out there, execute the CHR test and have fun. Remember, there is no good or bad MHR, no high or low or elite or beginner. All heart rates you will find are extremely personal. The fittest and the fastest champs can have a lower MHR in the range of 130 up to 140, while recreational age group runner can have an MHR of 165, and the other way around. First, I'm going to do a warm-up and I'm going to dribble very, very slow. And then I'm going to increase my speed every 2 minutes with 1 km per hour. Every moment I'm going to check my watch to see if my speed is right. Reminder, the settings on my watch are speed in kilometers per hour, heart rate and a timer. I will start with 8 km per hour and every 2 minutes I'm going to increase my speed with 1 km per hour. So first I'm going to do a warm-up for 10 up to 15 minutes. And I'm running 8 km per hour. So now we are going to increase our speed to 9 km per hour for the next 2 minutes.
Let's go. Speed right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, 2 minutes gone, 10 km per hour.
Speed right?
Exactly.
Okay, very
Spot
good.
on.
2 more minutes, 10 km per hour.
2 minutes gone, 11 km per hour.
So the next 2 minutes, 11 km per hour.
Yes.
What's the speed?
11.1.
Right.
Okay, 2 minutes gone, 12 kilometers per hour.
So the next 2 minutes, 12 kilometers per hour.
Okay, 2 more minutes gone. We're going to do 30.
I think it's getting heavier. What's the speed on your watch?
13. Yeah.
Okay.
2 more minutes, 14 kilometers per hour.
Oh, it's getting heavier. I can see it. Still going well?
Well, it's getting heavier.
Can you check your speed?
2 minutes, gone, 15 kilometers per hour.
Okay, good. Try to maintain. Try to keep up.
Oh. 2 more minutes, gone, 16 kilometers per hour.
Oh, I think that's close to the max. Okay, I think you're there. I think you're there.
I made it. Oh, that's it.
What's your heart rate?
That's it.
What's your heart rate?
172.
172.
Yeah, 172.
So we reached.
This is my max.
Yeah,
Probably my max.
So we reached
Yeah.
16 kilometers per
Per
hour.
172 my heart rate.
Okay, that's a good result.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really my max. So now we found your CHR, the result of the CHR test. Well done! In case you need to convert the running speeds, I have a conversion sheet under the Resources. It's called CHR Test Running Speed Conversion Table. The table translates kilometers per hour to minute per mile and minute per K. Now let's focus on mapping your MHR. For this explanation, I will use two sample test results. The CHR you found is, for example, 150 beats per minute. And the speed you reached is, for example, 12 kilometers per hour. To find your MHR, we have to follow the next steps. 1. Correct your CHR based on the end speed you reached. 2. Calculate your MHR based on the corrected CHR. Let's first have a look at point number 1, the correction we have to make on your CHR. When you have reached a max speed of 11 kilometers per hour, you have to add 6 beats per minute to your final reading of your heart rate. When your final speed was 12 or 13 kilometers per hour, you have to add 3 beats per minute to your final heart rate reading. In this example, the final speed you reached was 12 kilometers per hour. And the final heart rate was 150 beats per minute, which means we have to add 3 beats per minute to the heart rate you found. 153 beats per minute is the end result of the test. Here's a table with CHR corrections depending on the final speed you have reached at the end of the CHR test. Max speed up to 11 kilometers per hour. Final heart rate reading plus 6. Max speed 12 or 13 kilometers per hour. Final heart rate reading plus 3. Max speed 14 or 15 kilometers per hour. Final heart rate reading, no correction. Max speed 16 to 17 kilometers per hour. Final heart rate reading, minus 3. Max speed 18 or 19 kilometers per hour. Final heart rate reading, minus 6. Max speed 20 and more, then you're probably too fast for the 9-mile marathon training system. Let me give you a couple of examples on how to correct your CHR. Example 1. You reached max 13 kilometers per hour. Your heart rate is 172 BPM after you kept on pushing for as long as you could while running 13 kilometers per hour. Then your CHR is 172 plus 3 is 175 BPM. Example 2. You reached max 18 kilometers per hour. Your heart rate is 162 BPM after you kept on pushing for as long as you could while running 18 kilometers per hour. Then your CHR is 162 minus 6 is 156 BPM. Example 3. You reached 11 kilometers per hour. Your heart rate is 183 BPM after you kept on pushing for as long as you could while running 11 kilometers per hour. Then your CHR is 183 plus 6 is 189. Example 4. You reached 15 kilometers per hour. Your heart rate was 158 after you kept on pushing for as long as you could while running 15 kilometers per hour. Then your CHR is 158 BPM. Later on in this video, we will use this newfound CHR to determine your marathon heart rate, your personal MHR, the cornerstone of the 9-mile marathon program. This process we call mapping your MHR. Now let me explain to you why we make these plus 3, minus 3, minus 6, etc. corrections. Well, I found that somewhat slower runners have more difficulty to really push themselves to the max. Most of the somewhat slower runners tend to quit their effort a bit too early. Not because they want, but simply because their bodies aren't used to really push themselves to the max. Most of the somewhat slower runners do not push themselves hard on speed work and interval training either. For this reason, they are not used to pushing themselves in their higher heart rate zones. In my 9-mile marathon training program, speed work and interval training is an essential part of the system, with one objective: to train your body to adapt and to perform at different levels of performance and to create resistance for the final miles of the marathon. And throughout the years, I noticed that most somewhat slower runners don't like speed work. On the contrary, faster and highly trained runners are used to pushing themselves closer to the max. They have a higher mental and physical resistance. They can even run above their CHR for an extended period of time. The faster you get as a runner on the shorter distances like 5 and 10K, the better you are able to dig deep. Now that's the reason why we have to protect the faster runners a bit against themselves, with slightly lower heart rates for when they are going to train for the long distances. That's why we have this table with upward and downward test corrections. They are all experience-based. The faster runners we have to protect a bit to run at more modest heart rate, to protect them from going too deep and exhaust themselves on the long distances. At the same time, we allow the somewhat slower runners to push themselves a little bit. Now let's focus on point 2, mapping your MHR. The MHR we map today will be the MHR you will use for your next training period, for all your MHR training runs, and your next race. We will also use your MHR as a reference for your interval and speed training. You will do your speed work above your MHR, and you will do your dribbling, your slow dribbling between your speed sets below your MHR. When you will do another marathon later on, I advise you to do the CHR test again, which will probably result in a slightly different MHR. Your MHR is mapped on your corrected CHR and the best 10K you did in the past 12 months. We will use the following equation. MHR equals CHR minus your 10K time in minutes plus 28. In the example we used today, we found a CHR of 153. When your best 10K is 60 minutes, your MHR will be 153 minus 60 plus 28 equals 121 BPM. Below you will find a couple of sample equations. Example 1. Your CHR is 175. You run 10K in 58 minutes. Your MHR is 145 BPM. Example 2. Your CHR is 156. You run 10K in 39 minutes. Your MHR is 145 BPM. Example 3. Your CHR is 189. You run 10K in 62 minutes. Your MHR is 155 BPM. Example 4. Your CHR is 158. You run 10K in 52 minutes. Your MHR is 134. Your MHR is not a fixed number. It's a zone. You can use a margin of plus or minus 3 BPM. Let me give you an example. When your MHR is calculated at 140 BPM and you feel you have to constantly push to get there, it is safe to stay at the low side, like 138 BPM, and vice versa. When you feel like you have to hold back all the time, you can safely add 2 or 3 heartbeats. In that case, when your MHR is calculated at 140 BPM, it is okay to stay at the high side and run at 142 or 143 BPM. Now, what if your 10K time is more than 75 minutes? In that case, my advice is to first train to run your 10K a bit faster, until you have reached the 75 minutes mark. Why? Well, consider this. When running at 10K takes more than 75 minutes, it means your marathon will take over 6 hours. Running a marathon in over 6 hours is beyond the scope of the 9 mile marathon training system. Once you run a 10K within 75 minutes, you can apply the 9 mile marathon training concepts and finish well within 6 hours. Most of my students perceive their running pace at the calculated MHR as a bit slow. Most are used to push themselves harder. At the same time, these are my running students who have had bad experiences in the past with running a marathon. Most of them collapsed in the final 6 to 8 miles. So you have to trust the system and be patient. This may be difficult mentally, in particular in the early weeks of the program. Keep running at your MHR. Don't mind your pace. Your MHR running pace will gradually increase over time. Your body will get used to this type of training. With all runners I have trained, the big switch happens somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks. By then, everything seems to loosen up, get easier, lighter. And without really pushing, your speed at the same heart rate will increase. I have created another pinup for you today. I call the Finish Time Prediction Pinup. It connects your 10K time, your running pace at MHR, and your marathon finish time. As a bonus, I included half marathon table prediction times as well, in 2 different versions. Your half marathon finish times when you want to run your best half marathon, and your half marathon finish times for when you do your half marathon as a prep run for your full marathon. I call this a B race, a truly unique table. Next week I will explain to you more about how to use your MHR for your half marathon training. And I will explain the concept of A races, B races, and C races. For most of my running students, towards the end of the 9 mile training program, running 9 miles at MHR is completely effortless. When you reach this state, your body has completely adapted to your MHR. Your body will be transformed. By then, your strength will have increased, your running speed too, and you will be much more flexible. And you will have completed the metabolic energy supply switch. Your capacity to burn fats instead of sugars will have increased dramatically. You feel as if you can keep on going forever. So today we did the CHR test and we have mapped your MHR. We have found the MHR you will use for your next training period. Your marathon heart rate sweet spot. Your foundation for the 9 mile marathon training program. Your foundation for marathon running mastery.